Hey, what is up, comic book culture? It's your boy CBM in the house and the place to be. And welcome back to my comic book channel, Indie Key Comics, where we collect, review, and invest in, you guessed it, indie key comic books. And if you like what you've seen here so far, please subscribe, click like, leave a comment, and smash that notification bell. With that said, let's talk comic books. And today, we're going to be covering none other than The Walking Dead. Yep, that's right, The Walking Dead. I don't even know where to start. I can't explain how much I love this comic book series. First of all, let's start off with that the comic book series came out in 2003. And the show came out in 2010. So this series has been a part of my life for the last 20 years. Like, no, that's half of my adult life. That's how long this comic book series has been about. And it completely changed my life. And it changed the way I read comics and looked at comic books and thought of comic books, to say the very least. I just love this series. I can't explain how much I love it. I love it just as much as anything Marvel. And Marvel has been a part of me since my childhood into my adult life. And if I was stuck on a desert island and somebody said, what are the top 10 books that you need while you're stuck on this desert island for the rest of your life? I'm gonna say, I need Silver Surfer, Adam Warlock, Thanos, Captain Marvel, Avengers, Fantastic Four, Guardians of the Galaxy. I need me some Thor. And I'm gonna say, please don't forget my Walking Dead. Because it's not almost on the same level as anything Marvel. It's on that same level. I cherish it. That's how much I love it. That's how much I hold it near and dear to my heart. That's how fond I am of this series. I just hold it in such high regards and just the utmost respect for this series as anything Marvel. And I just love it so much. There is nothing else like The Walking Dead. Since then, or even before that, there's never been anything like The Walking Dead before. And I think that's why it has such a huge impact on the comic book culture. And not only is it a great, excellent read, a life-changing read, it's a great investment. I can't stress that enough. With that said, let's get this video started. On the Key Collector app, Key Collector recognizes 62 key issues out of the 193 issues of Walking Dead. We're going to cover those 62 issues that Key Collector recognizes as key issues to the series. And let me tell you, issue 1 is a mega key, in my opinion. So let's get this video started. First of all, these are my Walking Dead boxes. These are my original Walking Dead boxes. They're not made by BCW or NECA. I can't remember who made these boxes, but they're excellent boxes. They were the first Walking Dead boxes ever. And I just love the way they look. It shows that first scene in Walking Dead where Rick is walking down that hallway after he just woke up, from being in coma through the zombie apocalypse or through the start of it. And he's walking down that hallway and he runs into that door that says, "Dead inside, don't open." And when I found these boxes, I was like, I just have to have them. I have to get them. So this is where I hold my Walking Dead key issues. So let's get to them. Okay. We're gonna start with no other than the infamous Walking Dead issue 1. It's the start, it's the beginning to something epic. This comic book series came out in 2003. Let's see what Key Collector has to say real quick about it. Adapted by AMC for cable television, is the first appearance of Rick Grimes, the first appearance of Shane Walsh, and it had a print run of 7,266. And If you look over here in the top right hand corner, you can see that I have the black label where it says mature readers. And these were the first 1,400 printed out of that 7,266. So to me, the one with the black label where it says mature readers, to me, that's copy 1A. That is the original first print. Now the one that came out with the white insignia and mature readers in white, I'm not gonna say that's a second printing or that's a variant or that's copy 1B. I still consider it and classify it as copy 1A. I just don't think it has the same value as this one, because this is some sort of error print or variant copy or original first printing, copy 1A, whatever you want to call it, print it first. And let's just take a look at that again. It's right up there, top right hand corner. The image insignia is in black. It says mature readers in black, and these are the first 1,400 copies printed out of the 7,266 copies that were printed. Now, out of those 7,266, let's just say 3,000 to 4,000 of those sold, which I'm not even sure that many of these books actually had sold. And that's 7,266 copies for the whole United States, spread across every comic book store in the United States. I don't think every single copy was sold. Let's just say out of that 7,266, if 3,000 to 4,000 were sold, again, let's split that in half, and maybe 2,000 of those were in 9.6 and 9.8 condition. But I definitely think at least half of these comics were sent back to the publisher and just completely destroyed. So I'm really glad I got my hands on this Walking Dead issue 1. It was 2003. I was at a Coliseum of comic books. I was really, really big into horror and sci-fi, and I still am. And I was looking for something different, something besides Marvel. I had grown a little bit tired of Marvel at that time because of the whole Marvel Now, where they were like, there was Lady Thor, and there was, all of these versions of Spider-Man, and just too much of that going on, too many changes to my childhood favorite superheroes. And I just didn't like the direction that Marvel was going with most of their storylines, most of their titles. So I was looking for a change, and like I said, I was really into horror and sci-fi, really big into it. And I was starting to get into some independent books, but for the most part, everything I had picked up was sort of a letdown. There wasn't much that I could say that I was really in love with, or I couldn't wait for this comic book series to come out next month and get my hands on it. I was kind of disappointed with a lot of the horror stuff that was out there, back then in the independent circuit, and a lot of the sci-fi stuff. Back then, indie comic books were really bad. I want to say for the most part, they just sucked ass. And I was at Coliseum of comic books, picking up my new comic books for the week. And I was going through the new comic book wall, and out of the corner of my eye, I caught this series that said The Walking Dead. And I turn around and I pick it up, and it's Walking Dead issues 3 and 4. I had missed Walking Dead issues 1 and 2. And back then, and I still am this kind of fan, anytime a new series started up, anytime there was a new issue 1, I just, out of habit, picked it up, just in case it became something of value, or just in case it was a good read, worth reading, something that I didn't want to miss out on. So anytime there's a new title starting, I usually pick up that issue 1 when I see it. So when I saw this issue 3 and 4 of Walking Dead, I was quite surprised that I missed out on issues 1 and 2, and that I had never even actually seen issues 1 or 2. I couldn't recall seeing them in the comic book store at all. So I pick up issue 3, and I scan through it real quick, And actually, next thing I know, I'm standing there in Coliseum of Comics just reading the whole issue 3. That's how much this black and white comic book caught my attention. And that's another thing. When I first opened it up, not only did that catch my attention, but I was wondering, like, why is this book in black and white? I was like, don't tell me another low-budget horror comic book that couldn't even afford to put color into this book. Like I said, I started scamming through it, and then I started reading it, and by the end of Walking Dead issue 3, I was in love with this. So after I found the 2 nicest copies of issues 3 and 4, I went to the register with my other books, and I believe that day, I think it was Jim that was at the register. He's been working at Coliseum of Comics forever. And I said to him, hey, did you guys ever get Walking Dead issues 1 and 2? And he said, no, that comic book had a really low print run, and we didn't get issues 1 or 2, and really that the series didn't start selling well until like issue 4. I guess at issue 3 there was some little talks of it, a little bit of hype. I wouldn't even call it hype back then, just little whispers of this black and white zombie series that is really, really good and captivating. So I said no problem, and I picked up my issues 3 and 4, and I started my hunt for Walking Dead issue 1. Now, I went to every comic book store in Orlando, and not one comic book store had it. And there was this small little, tiny little comic book store on 436 on Summerlawn Boulevard. And I was like, hey, do you guys have issue 1? And this guy really like pulled a quick one on me. He was like, no, I don't have Walking Dead issue 1, but let me check my inventory, see what I have in the warehouse. So he went on his computer and he checked his so-called inventory at the warehouse. And he said that he had a Walking Dead issue 1. I told him that I wanted one in really high grade, that I was really picky about the condition of my books. Now, in 2003, I'm not sure if eBay was around or wasn't around, or maybe I wasn't up on eBay yet, or I don't even think I knew about eBay. And if I did, I most certainly was not using eBay to collect comic books, to go comic book hunting at that time. In 2003, I was still collecting comic books just like the old-fashioned traditional way, which was going and hunting for them at comic book stores, at flea markets, at garage sales, any place I could find them, Craigslist. So he said that he did have a copy and that it was going to be in next week. It was going to be in a week's time. So a week later, I went back to the comic book store and he charged me $20 for a comic book that had just come out 3 to 4 months ago. And at the time, I thought that was outrageous. I thought it was ridiculous and unheard of. I was like, how can a book, I told him, that just came out 3-4 months ago be worth $20 already? That's ridiculous. Now, I understand that he had to make his money, and I'm sure he had to order it off of eBay. And I'm sure he wanted to make a little profit for going through the trouble of ordering it off of eBay for me. I just wish I knew of eBay back then, and I would have just, ordered a copy myself and probably have saved me a little bit of money. But I was a little bit outraged, to say the least. A little bit pissed off. I couldn't believe I was paying $20 for a comic that had just recently came out 12 weeks ago. But nonetheless, I'm a completist, and I had to have my issue 1. And when it came in, I was really, really surprised that the book, the corners are extra, extra sharp to this day. There's not one blunted corner on this book. There's not one indentation, impression, tick mark, non-color breaking tick mark, stress mark, wave, any sort of curviness or bending to the book. There's no fingerprints. It lays flat. This book is going to grade a 9.6 to a 9.8 easily. And the reason why I say a 9.6 is just to be on the conservative side. But I know once this book gets a pressing and a cleaning, It's gonna grade a 9.8 for sure. It's just a beautiful, gorgeous book. I've had it in slab or encapsulated in this for the longest. I want to say at least the last 5 years. It's in a My Light with a full back, so it is completely preserved and encapsulated, and no harm has come to this book. So this book has never even been opened or read. I thought it was, it costed me so much. As soon as I came home, like I just said, I put it like in a My Light and with a full back, and I put this book away. And I didn't get to read it until the first trade paperback actually came out, and I can't remember how long that took, but it took a while. So I didn't really start reading this book from issue 1. I started at issue 3. And with that said, I'm going to move on to the next book, because let's show it one more time. It's my cornerstone to my collection. It's my foundational comic. I don't think any comic book in the last 40 years, I'll go as far back as 1978. I don't think any comic book in the last 45 years has had the kind of impact that Walking Dead issue 1 has had. Investment-wise and storytelling-wise, this title has just been phenomenal. I don't think anything in the last 40 years has come out in the modern era that is worth as much as Walking Dead issue 1. That I just can't. If you can think of anything that tops Walking Dead in value in the last 45 years, please leave a comment down below and let me know what book tops this in value, in price, in sales. And with that said, let me just check Key Collector real quick for something. Key Collector has this book at a high of $1,500 at a 9.0, and just this summer I saw this book at a 9.8 sell for $4,750. So this is it's beyond a great investment. It is an excellent investment. And again, I can't think of anything that has come out in the last 45 years that's worth more than Walking Dead issue 1 in the last 45 years. So with that said, let's go to issue 2 now. Now I've got issue 2 over here. Like I said, when I started collecting and reading The Walking Dead, the first 2 comics that I found on the shelf on New Comic Book Day was issues 3 and 4. That's where I started reading Walking Dead until the trade paperbacks came out. And then I finally, for the first time, got to read issues 1 and 2. I didn't own issue 2 in my collection until recently. I found it at Blackbird Comics, aka Coffee and Comics, in Winter Park, Florida. And I was the other day, they had gotten in a whole collection, a whole straight run, a complete series of The Walking Dead. And the owner of that comic book store paid big money for it. So I couldn't wait to see these comics up on his wall, because I said, as soon as these comics go up on that wall, I'm going to purchase the ones I need. And one of the ones that I needed was issues 2. And at first, he had an asking price of $550. It was pretty much the same asking price as eBay had. Now I thought to myself, I think this guy's going to have some problem selling this book at $550. I'm going to wait until he lowers the price on that book, and that's when I'm going to go in for the strike, for the kill. And I waited until he brought the book down to $300. I don't know if you can see the price tag on it. And then I offered him $250, and he took it. And boy, was I glad to finally get my hands on this book. I was so happy to add this to the collection. It was only one of 2 books that I was missing in my whole entire Walking Dead collection. So I was ecstatic about getting this book. I couldn't wait to get home and put it away and add it to the rest of the collection. He already had it in a My Light with a full back, so I haven't taken it out. I haven't changed it changed it over to a bag and board yet. But I do plan on doing that eventually. I do plan on changing it over to a new My Light, a new fullback, and one of these slabs. The reason why I didn't have this in my collection is because after I purchased Walking Dead issue 1 from a local comic book store for $20, I was so outraged and so pissed off that I had spent so much money on one comic book that just came out 3 to 4 months ago, 12 weeks ago, tops. I just couldn't bring myself to spend another $20 on one single issue when I can buy like a stack of 7 books with $20. I was like, I'm not gonna do that. I didn't need it. I thought I didn't need it. It was one of the biggest mistakes and regrets in my comic book collecting history. Not getting Walking Dead issue 2 for $20 when it first came out, even though I was like I said, 3 to 4 months late on the series. And I believe I didn't find issues 1 and 2 because of the extremely low print run. And I also want to add that a comic book store owner had told me that the whole state of Florida only had 1,400 copies of issue 1 and 1,000 copies of issue 2 for the whole state. Every comic book store in the whole state, from Miami to Jacksonville. I never got my hands on issue 2 until just recently. I want to say it was 2022 when I got my hands on issue 2, and I'm just glad to have finally added this to the collection. The guy that sold this collection to Blackbird Comics bought in an excellent collection, a collection that there was comics that they were in the type of condition where I would have added any of those books to my collection. They were in that great of shape. They were in excellent condition. Like I said, 9.6 to 9.8 type of condition. And I only say 9.6 being conservative because I think every book needs a cleaning and a pressing before they go to CGC to finally get graded. And I checked the book back and front before I bought it. And it is just a gorgeous piece. And let's see what Key Collector has to say about it real quick. Walking Dead issue 2. It is the first appearance of Rick's wife, Lori Grimes. It is the first appearance of Rick's son, Carl Grimes. It's the first appearance of Glenn, and it had a print run of 6,000. I can't say enough about how much I love this series and the brand and just the story. And I'm just so glad to finally have had, like I said, issue 2 in my collection. And let's just take a look at it real quick before we finally put it away. Let me tell you, I would not have bought this comic if it wasn't in great shape. It's got 4 sharp corners. There's no impressions or indentions or tick marks or stress marks on it. There's no bend or curviness or waviness. It lays flat. No color breaks or color rubs or smudges. It's just an excellent, let's just take one more closer look. It's an excellent and gorgeous condition. I'm so thankful and grateful for the guys at Blackbird Comics and to the owner for the deal he gave me on this book. Like I said, I paid $250. It's a $550 book on eBay all day, every day. And I'm just so glad to finally got my hands on it and correct that lifelong mistake that I made back in 2003 when I passed this book up for $20. It was a $230 price correction on me, but I'm so glad to finally have gotten it. So let's put this book away. And the next book, the next key issue that we are talking about, of course, is Walking Dead issue 3. Okay, so this is not the original Walking Dead issue 3 that I purchased in 2003 as a young man. I went home and like I said, back then no one really thought oh my God, no one was really speculating. I don't even know if speculating was a thing back in 2003, but no one was thinking oh my God, this is such a great zombie comic book. Let me, preserve it and maintain it and keep it in great shape and in excellent condition, because one day it might be turned into a hit TV show, a top 10, top 5 series of all time. It might get turned into a movie. No one was thinking like that in 2003. You just bought your damn comic book and, especially if it was an indie comic book, you just read the crap out of it and you just enjoyed it, and then you just kind of tossed it into your collection. And good thing I wasn't like that. I saw the value in Walking Dead. I saw the potential. I saw how epic the storyline was. I saw how much I fell in love with the story, with the characters. I saw how much I was hurt and missed the characters when they were no longer in the story and they were gone and killed off. So I knew I had something special on my hands. And not that I was speculating on it for it to be a TV show or a movie in the future. I just thought, as a comic book, this is going to be worth something in the future. I thought it was the best modern day comic of all time since 1978. You can't tell me there's a better comic book series than The Walking Dead. And you can't tell me that there's a more valuable comic book series than The Walking Dead. This series has 62 key issues in it. Can somebody else pull 62 key issues out of any modern day series? I don't think so. I just don't think so. And key issues that are worth money. So like I said, this is not the original Walking Dead issue 3 that I bought back in the day in 2003 as a young man. I came home, I read the crap out of that comic, and I put a color smudge right in the middle of it, right here, right in the middle of Carl's t-shirt. I completely smudged it, with my thumb. It was like a huge fingerprint was left on it. And I gave it away to a friend. I think that comic book still would have graded like a 9.0, because it was in, like I said, that day when I found Walking Dead issues 3 and 4, I picked out the best out of the bunch. And it was by accident that I kind of smudged off some of the coloring. So I gave it away to a friend, and again, back then I could not bring myself to spend $20 on one individual indie comic book when you could buy like 7 Marvel comics, on New Comic Book Day, and have like so much more to read. And back then I was really, really in love with Marvel. Not that I'm not still really, really in love with Marvel to this day, but The Walking Dead kind of pulled me away from, that's what pulled me away from Marvel during its bad times, and that's what really changed the way I collected comics and the way I viewed and thought about comics. I looked at them in a whole new way, and I really got into indie comics and digging up good back issues of indie comics, and really just getting into indie horror and sci-fi titles back then, and just discovering this whole new world of this whole other side of comic book collecting that I didn't even know existed back in 2003. And like I said, prior to 2003, I gave some indie comics a fair chance, but most of them were pretty crappy for the most part, especially the horror titles. I can't think of anything that stands out indie comic book wise before 2003, before Walking Dead kicked that door down and introduced the world to indie comic books. So but again, in 2003, I couldn't bring myself to spend another $20 on one individual indie comic book, like I said, when you could have a stack of Marvel comic books to read for the week. And I didn't buy it. I didn't hunt it down. I didn't search for it online or anything like that. Like I said, back then I wasn't really big on eBay. And I never came across it in any comic book store in the greater Orlando area. And I'm talking about, I would travel, back then I would go to comic book stores as far as Tampa, all the way up to Melbourne. So I visited, and to this day I still visit a lot of comic book stores, that are an hour away, from my house. But I never came across the book. I never seen it again. And that's why I always suggest, if you see a book, if you have a book right in front of you, that you love, that you desire, that you really want, that's in the condition you want it to be in, do not pass that book up. It may be a once in a lifetime opportunity to pick that book up before you never see it again for like another 20 years. And that's exactly what happened to me with Walking Dead issues 2 and issues 3. And I got this also at Blackbird Comic Books, aka Coffee and Comics, in Winter Park, Florida. The day he put this book up on the wall, like I said, I was there the day they got the collection, and it was in pristine mint condition, the type of condition I want my books to be in, the type of condition I hunt for. And the very next day I went back to the comic book store after they, priced everything. And the very next day when he threw this up on the wall, he had it up there for, I think it was $225 or $250. I paid $200 for it. I'll pay that all day, every day, because on eBay, this is like a $300 to $450 book, Walking Dead issue 3. It's a key issue. Don't sit back and say, oh, I'm gonna wait for some kind of price correction to happen on this book, or wait for its value to go down, because guess what? It's not. I've been tracking these books and keeping an eye on them for 20 years, so I know the price and value of every Walking Dead issue. I know when there's peaks and valleys, and dips in the series, when they're worth more and less other times. And with this whole Walking Dead season 11 and it being the final season, there is going to be no price correction with this series. I think people are going to forget how bad the last 3 to 4 years of Walking Dead, the TV show, is. And they're going to remember how epic the comic book series is, how epic seasons 1 through 7 were. They're going to remember how much they loved the show, how fond they were of it, how near and dear they hold it to their heart, and how much they missed those characters that they lost during the TV show and in the comics. And when nostalgia kicks in on these books, whoa, look out. It's going to skyrocket to the moon. But the prices are already there for this book. Like I said, this is a $300 to $450 book all day, every day long on eBay. No one's going to negotiate with you on this book. No one's going to put it up for auction. There's just a steady and constant price for it, and constantly high price for it. And I'm glad that, again, thank you to the owner at Blackbird Comics, aka Coffee and Comics in Winter Park, Florida. They just carry so many great and a bunch of indie titles. They're a great comic book store if you're looking for indie titles. And I'm just thankful for the deal he gave me on this book. I paid $200 for it. And again, I got to correct a lifelong mistake. And the mistake was of not taking care of this book when I originally got it, reading the crap out of it, getting a fingerprint smudge on the front cover, and it was a $200 mistake. And I should have been more responsible with my books. And that goes to show you, always take care of and always value the books you have. Have faith in the books that are in your collection, that they're going to one day be worth something. They're one day going to be, a great investment, and it's going to have a great payoff. So always treat your books with respect and care, for the history of just comics. And again, Walking Dead issue 3. Let's see what Key Collector has to say real quick. Walking Dead issue 3, printed in 2003. First appearance of Andrea. First appearance of Carl. Print run of 6,992. Again, I have to disagree. Walking Dead wasn't selling. It wasn't even selling well. I wouldn't even call it what it was doing, selling well. Like I said, it had a print run of 6,992. Who knows how many was actually ordered by retailers? Let's just say if 6,000 were ordered by retailers, who knows out of that 6,000 how many were sold? I'm sure it's more likely that 3,000 were sold. 3,000 was sent back to the publisher Image to be completely destroyed and never thought of again. And it's lucky that 3,000 copies of issue 3 were even sold. Out of those 3,000, how many of them bought a good copy? And how many of them had the foresight and decided to preserve this comic book and maintain it and keep it in excellent condition throughout the years, throughout the last 20 years. So I'm just thankful again that I have one that's in great condition, and I'm so happy to finally have this in my collection and complete the collection. And that was one of the few books I was missing, issues 2 and 3, and now I finally got them in the collection. And like I said, the corners are sharp. There's no blunted corners. There's no impressions or indentions on the comic. No non-color breaking tick marks or stress marks of the sort of lays flat. The white is really super white. No ink staining. There's no print staining or fingerprint staining. And it aged really well. And I'm just glad to have this finally in my collection. And again, I highly recommend checking out Blackbird Comics, aka Coffee and Comics, if you're ever in the Winter Park, Florida area. Well guys, let's take one final look at these comic books. And no, these are not just some regular comic books. These are definitely key issues recognized by Key Collector. Issue 1 is definitely a mega key. Like I said, I don't know if I mentioned this in the video, but I'm pretty sure over the summer, there was a recorded sale on eBay for Walking Dead issue 1, CGC 9.8, and I believe it hit $4,750 was the sale. And on an average, I'll notice that a Walking Dead issue 1, CGC 9.8 sells for about $3,900, which is pretty much $4 grand. So I would definitely classify Walking Dead issue 1, black label, mature readers in black on the front cover, definitely a mega key, a mega grail. Issue 2 is no slacker either. It easily sells for about $550, if not more. And issue 3, it's not far behind either. It definitely goes for $300 to about $450. So again, let's just take one super close-up look at these beauties, these gem mint, pristine comic books. And there they go, guys. Walking Dead issues 1, 2, and 3. I don't care what you want to call them, Grail books, key books, mega keys, but they're all of that. And I just want to say this concludes the end of part 1 to this series. Make sure to stay tuned for the next episode, where I will continue to cover the 62 key issues in the Walking Dead series. So that's a lot of keys, 62 out of 193. But again, please stay tuned for the next episode, where I will continue covering the key issues to the Walking Dead series. That's 193 comic books with 62 key issues recognized by Key Collector. So stay tuned for that next episode. It will be coming soon. And if you want to make sure that you catch that episode and you like what you've seen here thus far, please click like, subscribe, leave a comment, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any comic book content. And believe me when I say I'm going to have a ton of comic book content coming out on a daily. You don't want to miss a thing. Peace out, comic culture.